Imagine this for a moment. One simple fold of the body, repeated every day, quiet and uncelebrated, yet powerful enough to reshape how the body understands itself. At first it looks almost too small to matter, just a hinge at the hips, the spine gently yielding forward, gravity doing most of the work. But the human body does not respond to drama. It responds to repetition. Each time you fold, you send a signal through muscles, joints, and nerves that movement does not have to be aggressive to be meaningful. This single action begins to soften patterns that have been built over years of sitting, guarding, and bracing against life's pressures. From a neurological perspective, this daily fold is a conversation with the nervous system. Much of modern tension comes from a body living in a constant low-grade state of alert, where muscles stay subtly contracted as a form of protection. When you fold forward slowly and deliberately, the sensory receptors in the muscles and tendons detect a controlled lengthening rather than a threat. Over time, this reduces unnecessary muscle tone, teaching the nervous system that it can relax without losing stability. This is not flexibility in the gym sense, but adaptability at a biological level, the ability to move between effort and ease without friction. There is also an important mechanical truth hidden in this movement. The muscles along the back of the body, especially the hamstrings and spinal extensors, are deeply connected to posture and balance. When these tissues are habitually tight, the body compensates elsewhere, often creating discomfort in the lower back, hips, or neck. A daily forward fold gently restores length and balance to this posterior chain, redistributing forces more evenly across the body. This reduces wear on joints and allows movement to become more efficient, not by adding strength, but by removing excess resistance. What makes this fold especially powerful is its relationship with gravity. Instead of fighting it, the body learns to cooperate with it. Gravity becomes a tool rather than an enemy, encouraging decompression in the spine and a subtle traction effect that nourishes spinal tissues. Blood flow improves to areas that often feel compressed or stagnant, delivering oxygen and nutrients that support cellular repair. Over weeks and months, this quiet nourishment accumulates, much like compound interest, producing changes that feel gradual but deeply rooted. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect is the psychological message embedded in this daily ritual. By returning to the same simple movement each day, you create a sense of continuity and trust. The body learns that it will be given time to unwind, that it does not have to hold tension indefinitely. This consistency shapes perception, turning the fold into a moment of self-regulation rather than exercise. In that moment, the body is not being pushed to perform, but invited to respond, and that invitation, repeated daily, becomes a foundation for resilience, calm, and long-term physical harmony. As the body moves into a forward fold, the spine becomes the quiet center of change, responding not as a rigid structure, but as a living system designed for motion and communication. The spine is often imagined as a stack of bones, yet in reality, it functions more like a flexible antenna, constantly transmitting information between the brain and the rest of the body. When you fold forward each day, you stimulate this system in a way that is gentle but profoundly informative, reminding the nervous system how to coordinate movement with awareness rather than habit. Each segment of the spine contains small stabilizing muscles and sensory receptors that rarely receive focused attention in everyday life. Modern routines limit spinal movement to narrow patterns, often keeping the spine upright or slightly collapsed for long hours. The daily fold reintroduces controlled spinal flexion, allowing these small muscles to awaken and rehydrate through movement. This improves the flow of nutrients to spinal discs, which rely on motion rather than direct blood supply for nourishment. Over time, this process supports disc health, maintaining their ability to absorb shock and adapt to load without becoming brittle or compressed. The brain's role in this movement is just as important as the physical mechanics. As you fold, the brain receives a steady stream of sensory feedback from joints, muscles, and connective tissue. This enhances proprioception, the internal sense of where the body is in space. Improved proprioception is closely linked to balance, coordination, and injury prevention, especially as the body ages. What feels like a simple bend forward is actually a daily rehearsal for graceful movement, training the brain to respond accurately to changes in position and load. There's also a subtle recalibration of effort that occurs through repetition. When a movement is performed slowly and consistently, the brain begins to refine how much muscle activation is truly necessary. Excess effort is gradually reduced and efficiency improves. This means the body learns to move with less strain, conserving energy and reducing unnecessary tension. In scientific terms, motor patterns become more economical, but in lived experience, movement simply feels smoother and more natural. Over time, this daily spinal movement influences posture beyond the fold itself. A spine that regularly experiences flexion without fear becomes more adaptable in upright positions. Standing and walking require less compensatory tension, and the head naturally aligns over the body with less effort. This adaptability reduces the likelihood of chronic discomfort, as no single region is forced to absorb stress meant to be shared across the system. What makes this process so powerful is its cumulative nature. No single fold creates dramatic change, but the body remembers patterns. Each repetition reinforces the idea that movement is safe, controlled, and restorative. The spine, responding to these signals, gradually shifts from a structure of defense to one of communication. In this way, the daily fold becomes less about stretching and more about teaching the body how to move with intelligence, sensitivity, and long-term structural balance. As the body settles into a forward fold, breathing begins to change almost without instruction, guided by the shape of the body itself. The gentle compression of the abdomen and chest naturally encourages slower, deeper breaths. And this shift is more than a feeling of calm. It is a measurable physiological response. The diaphragm, the primary muscle of respiration, is guided into a fuller range of motion, and with each unforced breath, the nervous system receives a signal that the environment is safe enough to soften its vigilance. This change in breathing activates the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, often described as the body's rest and repair mode. Heart rate subtly slows, blood pressure begins to normalize, and stress hormones that keep the body in a state of readiness gradually decrease. When this response is triggered daily, it becomes easier for the body to access calm states even outside the fold. The nervous system learns through repetition, and a consistent forward fold acts as a daily reminder that relaxation is not an emergency response, but a learned skill. The digestive system also responds to this shift. When the body exits constant stress mode, blood flow is redirected away from the muscles and toward internal organs. This improves digestive efficiency, nutrient absorption, and elimination. Many people experience subtle improvements in gut comfort over time, not because of dietary changes, but because the nervous system is no longer interfering with digestive rhythms. This highlights a key scientific insight. Many bodily functions are not limited by capacity, but by chronic tension and misdirected energy. The relationship between breath and emotion becomes especially clear in this position. Forward folding often brings awareness inward, quieting external distractions and allowing sensations to surface. From a neurological perspective, slow breathing influences brain regions involved in emotional regulation, reducing reactivity and enhancing clarity. Over time, this daily practice can reshape how the brain interprets stress, making emotional responses less abrupt and more measured. Calm becomes not just a mood, but a physiological baseline that the body can return to with greater ease. There's also an effect on sleep quality that often goes unnoticed. By regularly activating the parasympathetic system, the body becomes better at transitioning from wakefulness to rest. Evening folds, in particular, can signal the nervous system that the day's demands are ending. This improves sleep onset and depth, allowing the brain to cycle through restorative phases more efficiently. Better sleep then feeds back into improved hormonal balance, immune function, and cognitive performance, creating a reinforcing loop of recovery. What makes this process profound is its simplicity. The body does not require complex breathing techniques or conscious control to benefit. The shape of the fold itself guides the breath into a more efficient pattern. Over time, the body associates this position with safety and restoration, creating a conditioned relaxation response. In this way, the daily fold becomes a quiet teacher, showing the body how to breathe not just for survival, but for balance, recovery, and long-term nervous system health. When a forward fold is practiced every day, its influence extends beyond muscles and breath into the vast internal network of connective tissue that holds the body together. Fascia is not passive wrapping. It is a sensory-rich, living system that responds to how the body is used. Long periods of stillness, repetitive posture, or stress cause this tissue to stiffen and lose hydration, creating a sense of restriction that many people interpret as aging or inevitable tightness. The daily fold gently reverses this process by introducing consistent, low-intensity tension that fascia is biologically designed to respond to. Facial tissue adapts slowly, but it adapts deeply. Unlike muscles, which respond quickly to effort, fascia remodels itself in response to sustained and repeated input. When the body folds forward and remains there with relaxed breathing, fluid begins to move through this tissue, improving its glide and elasticity. This hydration allows layers of tissue to slide more freely over one another, reducing friction during everyday movement. Over time, this reduces stiffness not only in the back of the body, but throughout interconnected regions, because fascia transmits tension across long chains rather than isolated areas. This remodeling has a direct impact on movement efficiency. When facial tension is uneven, the body compensates by recruiting extra muscle effort to stabilize joints. This leads to fatigue and the sensation that movement requires more energy than it should. As the daily fold restores balance within the connective tissue network, muscles are free to do their intended work without overcompensation. Movement begins to feel lighter, smoother, and less forced, not because strength has increased dramatically, but because internal resistance has quietly diminished. Posture also evolves as a result of these changes. A body with adaptable fascia naturally organizes itself with less conscious effort. The spine stacks more easily, the shoulders settle without strain, and the pelvis finds a neutral position that supports both stability and mobility. This shift is not about holding oneself upright, but about releasing the restrictions that pull the body out of alignment. Over time, standing and sitting require less muscular vigilance, reducing the background tension that often leads to chronic discomfort. There's also a sensory dimension to facial health. Fascia contains a high concentration of nerve endings that contribute to body awareness. As this tissue becomes more elastic and hydrated, sensory feedback improves. The brain receives clearer information about position and movement, enhancing coordination and reducing the likelihood of sudden strain or injury. This improved communication supports confident movement, especially in daily activities that require bending, lifting, or reaching. What makes this daily fold so effective for connective tissue is its respectful pace. Fascia responds best to gentle, sustained input rather than forceful stretching. The fold invites the body to adapt without resistance, creating changes that feel integrated rather than imposed. Over time, the body no longer feels held together by stiffness, but supported by a responsive internal network that allows movement to unfold with ease, continuity, and a renewed sense of physical freedom. Beyond the visible physical effects, the most enduring influence of a daily forward fold often unfolds within the relationship between the mind and the body. Repeating one intentional movement each day builds familiarity, and familiarity creates trust. From a neurological perspective, the brain is constantly predicting outcomes based on past experiences. When the body repeatedly enters a fold and emerges without harm, the brain updates its expectations, learning that this range of motion is safe. This reduces fear-based muscle guarding and changes how sensations are interpreted, especially sensations that were once labeled as discomfort or threat. Pain science offers important insight here. Pain is not solely a signal from tissues. It is an interpretation shaped by context, memory, and emotional state. A daily fold provides a controlled environment where the brain can reassess physical sensations without urgency. Over time, this can lower pain sensitivity by reducing the alarm response associated with certain movements. The body becomes less reactive, and movement that once felt restricted begins to feel possible again. This shift is subtle but powerful, as it replaces avoidance with curiosity. There is also a psychological rhythm created by daily repetition. Performing the same simple action at the same time each day introduces predictability into the nervous system. Predictability is deeply calming to the brain, as it reduces cognitive load and uncertainty. This consistency turns the fold into a ritual rather than a task. In that moment, attention turns inward, not in a self-critical way, but with gentle observation. This fosters mindfulness without effort, allowing awareness to settle naturally into the body. As awareness improves, people often notice early signals of fatigue, tension, or imbalance before they escalate. This early detection supports self-regulation, enabling small adjustments throughout the day that prevent larger issues from developing. From a scientific standpoint, this reflects improved interoception, the brain's ability to sense internal states. Strong interoceptive awareness is associated with better emotional regulation, decision-making, and resilience under stress. Aging also takes on a different meaning through this practice. Rather than viewing physical change as decline, the daily fold reframes it as ongoing communication. The body is no longer something to dominate or fix, but something to listen to. This perspective reduces frustration and promotes adaptive behavior, which is essential for maintaining mobility and independence over time. The movement becomes less about achieving depth and more about honoring consistency. What emerges is a quiet form of confidence. Not the confidence of performance, but the confidence of connection. The body feels less like an object to manage and more like a partner in daily life. This partnership reshapes how effort, rest, and care are balanced. In this way, the daily forward fold becomes a living dialogue between biology and awareness, reinforcing the understanding that health is sustained not through extremes, but through small, repeated acts of attention that accumulate into lasting well-being.